Welcome to the Citrus Podcast Show, your fresh squeeze of music, art, and culture. Our guest today is a world-class musician and guitarist. We have the one and only Adrian Bellue.
Hey, what's up, Ky? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, man. I'm glad to be doing a podcast, actually. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's a nice change of pace. Always just playing guitar. I don't get to talk about it too much. So.
Right. Well, we'll be getting into that today.
Cool.
I had the pleasure of watching you perform live at Farmhouse.
Yeah, not too far from here, actually, down the street. Drove by it on the way here.
I think you've told me before that it's like a place where you can like test new material. You know, it's more laid back. Like
yeah. So it's kind of like a seasonal residency, is what I would call it, and I've been playing there on and off throughout the outdoor patio season for about, I don't know, I want to say like 10 plus years, but yeah, it's kind of like a more stripped down acoustic version, as silly as that sounds as an acoustic player, version of what I do. You know, it's not so much about me doing like a big show and playing my tunes as much as it's about me providing ambiance. So, but because of that, I get to try out some new things, experiment a little bit, you know, I provide the sound and stuff. So yeah, it's good to have these little like kind of like home base resident gigs for that purpose, you know, to be able to try new things. So.
Yeah, I remember the first time seeing you, it was just like in awe, just like all the riffs that you're playing. And yeah, it's pretty amazing to watch you play.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's that's kind of like the whole smoke and mirrors thing is like, how can I make myself sound like, you know, more than one instrument or more than one player, you know?
Right.
So I'm good. I'm doing my job right then.
And, we were talking about when I walked in, I'd watch you. You were like gluing on picks.
Yeah. Actually, I got here a little late, so I'm doing my nails here in the studio. And yeah, I use they're acrylic nails, just like little basic ones you get at like a CVS kind of thing. But yeah, they're acrylics, and I put them on as I perform or record, then I take them off. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think some of the first guys that were doing you know, plastic kind of acrylic nails. I think some of the earlier guys experimented by cutting up ping pong balls and gluing them to their fingers. Some history to that, but yeah, I got into doing that because playing a steel string acoustic is just so much stronger tension, and the strings being made of steel, it just kind of like rips your nails apart. So I remember some years ago I had the eureka moment, like, well, you know, there's got to be stronger nail material out there for these nail salons, you know, women going getting their nails done. So I just took my guitar down to a nail salon one day and sat there and had them, you know, I tried like gel, didn't work, and then I tried doing like the dip stuff and didn't quite work, and then just a regular old acrylic with nail glue. So I actually do them myself now. So you're gonna watch me do my nails at some point.
Yeah, I wanted to actually hear a little more from you about the first time you picked up a guitar. What was that guitar, and maybe some influences at the time that got you to the style that you play.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess to start, I started playing guitar at the age of 14. I'm just turned 36. I got my first guitar on my 14th birthday, but it wasn't an acoustic guitar. Actually, it took me a little while before I jumped on the acoustic thing, but I was definitely a heavy metal kid. So I was obsessed with metal. I had long hair like I do now, and I had a pointy black Slayer guitar. Yep, BC Rich Warlock, the Bronze series. Yeah,
that was your first guitar.
That was my first guitar. Yeah, which is funny because my first influence to even get the guitar wasn't so much rock and metal. It was actually my mother. Her good friend from when she grew up, a guy named Andy Panda. I remember for some reason he was passing through town and he had his acoustic guitar with him. And I think he was going through something. So like he was out back on like a hot August night kind of thing, playing the blues, and just watching him back there smoking a cigarette and playing the blues, just kind of wailing on the guitar, wailing. He was singing too, you know, and it just like struck me. It was like this emotional, you know, visceral display of you know, just you know, this guy and what he was feeling, what he was going through, and that's kind of like you know, I'd say the first thing that triggered me to like, okay, I want to get a guitar. And then I think like my neighbor gave me and my dad some CDs like Metallica and Slayer and Iron Maiden and Pantera, and it's all everything went downhill from there. You know? So yeah, that was probably my earlier memories with guitar and influence to play guitar. And so a lot of like learning classic riffs from bands that I liked, learning solos and licks and stuff like that. But it shifted to acoustic eventually. Yeah, it shifted to acoustic guitar.
How old were you during this when you first started?
Well, 14 through I want to say 16, 17. That's mostly electric guitar and heavy metal. But I had this one mentor in high school. I remember I had this mentor in high school. His name was Philip. Philip was really cool. He's actually at my sold out show we just did a couple weeks ago here in Sacramento. I had a local headliner, and I was really surprised to see this high school teacher of mine in the front row. And we're gonna actually have coffee tomorrow. But Phil quickly recognized in my rebellious youth that I should be playing guitar, And I remember amongst all the chaos of like me being a bad kid, essentially, he was like, Adrian, just keep playing guitar. Just keep playing guitar. And one of the things he made a deal with me when I was in high school, I think I was a sophomore going into junior year, and he made a deal with me. He's like, all right, you got to do some schoolwork, and you can play guitar, but you're going to learn classical guitar. And so I remember he took me to Skip's Music was the local guitar shop.
Skip's.
Yeah, Skip's. He took me down to Skip's Music, and we got it was a Jasmine by Takamine, a nylon string guitar, because he wanted me to learn nylon. So I remember at one point through that year, I was like spending an hour or two a day in class, like working on different stuff like Fernando Sor and Segovia and stuff like that. So I got obsessed with finger picking as a result of that, and then I just was into finger picking and heavy metal on electric guitar for a while through my teenage years. But honestly, I started getting into trouble, man, real young, and that's when I probably kind of hit like my first rock bottom, as a young adult.
Well, I think that comes with some of that music. It's rebellious.
Yeah, it's by nature, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's kind of why I gravitated so much towards metal and punk, is I was just I was kind of angry. I was angry, and I had something to say, and I had an attitude.
Right.
It's like perfect, stereotype when it comes to that, being a young teenager. But I unfortunately got into some rather bad crowds early on. I remember for a long time it was always like band practice was just drinking and smoking and not really getting a lot of music done. Yeah,
I've been there.
Yeah, so it's like you start realizing this pattern you get stuck in, and then you see the other bands doing it, at their practice spaces and stuff. But but I remember when I had my first stint with addiction was at that young age, and I had actually sold my electric guitar
to support
to support my addiction. Yeah, and then I sold my amps and stuff, and I didn't have a lot of stuff, but I had like saved up some money and bought a nice Jackson. I think it was my first nice electric guitar, and I had sold that. I
think that's when it hits you too, when all that stuff's gone.
Yeah,
and you're like, man, I used to have all of this stuff, and it's like, what's really important here? That's kind of maybe a eye-opening.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was a blessing in disguise for me going through that phase in my life, because it led me to a couple things. So the addiction actually led me to kind of a big reset where I at my worst, I discovered martial arts. And martial arts was a big impact in my life. I think I was about 19 or 20 or so. I started getting into martial arts, and it was kind of like my
like an outlet.
Yeah, my outlet, my recovery. And I think that's an important thing, because it's sort of, in retrospect, it taught me a few things going through that period of time where I went into martial arts heavily, and I was kind of dedicating myself to it because, I was a recovering addict. I was very undisciplined, and this guy took me in and started training me and giving me work to do around the school, and
adds that structure to your life.
Yeah, he encouraged me to get clean and stuff like that. And so for I think a handful of years, I thought that's what I was going to do, is like be a martial arts teacher, and get paid to punch people in your pajamas at the karate school, right? And it was a lot of fun, but I had a really bad injury, and that's kind of where I had another big reset, because this was in the 2010s, 11, 12, kind of so on, and basically there was kind of a problem happening in the medical realm where people were getting prescribed opiates too much, kind of part of the crisis we have right now in the United States. And I remember when I got this injury, I had health insurance, and my knee got basically torn apart. I got it reconstructed. It was a pretty big surgery.
Ouch.
And they made me get prescribed opiates, and I was a recovered addict. So that was like whoa, I got to be careful here.
Yeah, playing with fire.
Yeah, and I remember it was like, okay, I don't want to take anything like this. So I wasn't taking any of these prescription drugs, but it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I have to have something to be my outlet, so that I have to be able to shift my addiction, because I know I've got an addictive personality. It's why I love guitar and music and video games and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I got to shift my focus and my energy into something else while I'm recovering and fixing my knee and stuff. And that's one of the things that we used to do. We did a lot of kung fu, and one of the things that we always did was we practiced on the mukjang, which is essentially a wooden dummy. And you practice. I feel
like I've seen that.
There's there's movies and stuff like Donnie Yen films and stuff where he's practicing, clack, clack, clack. And, you learn these blocks and strikes through these rhythmic patterns. And in a lot of the traditional training, they teach you with these rhythmic counting and almost like songs.
That's interesting. Did that help you with your music, hand-eye coordination? And
it sort of, I would do that a lot. And then when I was recovering from the injury, I couldn't train really. I was stuck at home. I didn't have a training studio at home. It was a little apartment. And one of the things that I did not sell successfully during my addiction years was that old Jasmine Takamine acoustic guitar that my mentor had gotten me. And I remember I'm recovering, right? And I'm like, oh man, I need to hit something made of wood and count. That was one of the drills we did constantly. And so I pick up the old acoustic guitar from the corner of my room. It didn't even have all the strings on it. It had been just gathering dust, and it was in a weird tuning because it hadn't been, tuned in a long time. And then I start hitting it and counting. And that's when I see on YouTube this guy, Andy McKee, playing the song Drifting. It's going... It's kind of like mega viral, whatever. And Candy Rat Records was the name of the label, the channel on YouTube.
Was he doing that style?
Yeah. He was hitting his guitar, doing rhythms and melodies and stuff all by himself, like this little one-man band, And then I discover the rabbit hole of all this music, and realize that there's a whole scene and style of these players that are essentially their own bands, And that's when I realized, I want to do this. I hear a band in my head, but I didn't know about this. So I start kind of dabbling. And I remember I got invited to a barbecue, and I was going cabin fever crazy, recovering from that kind of injury. It's so much sitting doing nothing, right? With your knee.
Did you bring that guitar?
I brought that guitar with me. So because I wasn't always an ambivert. I was always kind of an introvert growing up. So I was like, oh, I might get nervous. I'll just play guitar in the corner at the party or whatever, the barbecue. And I did that, and the whole place gathered around me. Everyone, it's 30, 40 people. Yeah, just sat there quietly watching me. And then back then I used to close my eyes and just kind of zone. I'd open my eyes and I see all these people, and they're all clapping, and I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that's when a few people were, do you have a CD? Do you have a business card? You should play this open mic. One guy in a band was like, you should open for my funk band, next week at the club at Harlow's. And
Harlow's.
Yeah, and I used to sneak into gigs at Harlow's, so it was like, oh, this is all happening, the ball's rolling.
It was like a eureka moment, I could do this. I need to start, getting serious about, using my talents.
And then I remember I called my buddy, because I was into punk and metal, so I'm like, well, I don't know any recording studios, but I know this guy that makes punk band demos. And so I went to this horrible studio setting for an acoustic guitar, fine for punk, right?
Right.
But we made this demo tape, and you just hear like air conditioning units and like doors slamming. It's like but I made the demo, the 3-song demo, and I printed it out at Office Max, and I made my little designs. Yeah, I made my own little like home pressed EP, and I started handing them out and charging a couple bucks when I could here and there. But then I had the bright idea of doing the geeky band thing, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna find the home addresses of these guys that I saw on YouTube. Yeah. And I'm going to mail my disc to them.
There you go. That's how you get in there, right?
Well, yeah. And like, it's, you know, and when I look back on it, it sounds so cheesy, but it worked. You know, for the most part.
Some of the guys reached out to you, or?
Yeah. A couple guys responded and like gave me words of encouragement.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys didn't respond. Mm-hmm. I think one guy was even like, oh, I charge $300 to listen to demo tapes.
To listen to a demo tape?
I was like, okay.
Man, we're in the wrong business.
I was like, that guy's not my Guitar Hero anymore. I mean, maybe he thought I wanted like notes or something. I don't know. But one guy said like 4 or 5 words. He said, sounds good, want a tour. And I was like, what?
Sign me up.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I've got a couple weeks, California, in the West Coast. Let's do some gigs together. You can open. And it was just sort of a surreal moment. I was like, this guy thinks I'm good enough to open for him. Okay, you know.
Did you feel like you were there at that point, or you
absolutely
feel like
not? Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, no. I mean, I felt imposter syndrome most of my career. In fact, that's like a topic that comes up a lot in. Just with teaching privately and like, you know.
I feel like it's just like you only get so many of these opportunities, you know, and so sometimes, you have to just.
Oh yeah,
you can't pass it up.
Well, that was a lesson pretty early on I had from someone. I don't even remember who it was, because it wasn't like a big significant player that said this to me. It was probably just like a random person that just told me like, you need to say yes in this industry. It's like it's an industry where you don't even say maybe. Because that right there closes a door. Yeah. You know, I mean, the fact of the matter is there's someone else waiting for the call.
Right.
So I have this, honestly, it's almost like, I don't want to say it's a bad habit, but I have this habit where I'll say yes and then be like, okay, what the fuck did I just say yes to? Like before I even think about it, you know?
Did you have that moment when I had you come perform at the grand opening?
No. I mean, you guys were so cool, and it was such an organic, cool way to meet your family at the residency over here at the restaurant. I really liked playing here for you guys, and that's the thing is, you know, you do so many different kinds of gigs when you're a working artist, especially a solo artist. It's an interesting lifestyle. You know, I can go from playing, you know, a sold out gig at the Paramount Theater to like playing at the little bar restaurant down the street,
and it's 2 totally different atmospheres.
Exactly. That's the thing I've learned is it's a different presentation, it's a different atmosphere. You know, the vibe is really what you're getting out of a performance in general. You know, I mean, I think if people were there just to geek out on guitar, it wouldn't be as interesting for me, you know. I mean, being a guitar geek, you know, even I can say that confidently, that it's all about the atmosphere and the vibe. So that's why it's a little different when you come see me play at the winery versus see me playing a big stage gig. You know, it's almost like I rock out and put on a bigger show, and
right.
I just provide ambiance, and it's very intimate. You know, you can just sip wine and just really relax and be like, wow, you know, that's, you know, it's a nice melody, or you know, this is a nice vibe, you know. So yeah, the gig atmosphere is always so different, you know. And I remember that's another lesson I got too early on is you know, you got to pay your dues when it comes to that. And I would say yes to free or cheap gigs for years, you know, for years and years, to where it got to a point where I was asking these guys who eventually became my mentors, these famous guitar players now, how do I stop getting cheap gigs? And so there's this, you know, strange growth point where you have to start saying no.
Yeah.
You know?
You gotta start sticking to your guns, and
you create your value.
Yeah.
You create your value. And that's part of branding and growing as a business. And that was like a big thing, is like, you know, you go from making demos and playing the open mics to, okay, you're making albums and you're playing shows, and then you're like, okay, now I have a brand and I'm label and endorsements, and I've got a list of things to do every week, you know. And then it's a step in a progress, but I'm happy to say that, like, even in my humble lifestyle. I'm happy that I've built a career, and I've been able to travel around the world. In fact, I'm getting ready to go to Japan and Korea and Hawaii.
I wanted to talk about that because we were talking about different places you performed. So yeah, have you already done a tour out to Japan?
Yeah. So I did my first Japan tour last year in spring in May, and I got to spend 2 weeks out there, and I did I think about 8 or 9 shows. And
that was your first time going out there?
First time in Japan. Yeah. I've done some stuff in Southeast Asia, but Japan's been like a target for me. Just being someone that was obsessed with Japanese culture and all kinds of different things with games and anime growing up. It was a big surreal moment, but it was just cool because of the way it happened for me too. Doing what I do, I'm kind of the underdog. I'm not the most famous guy in my scene, but I work hard and everyone knows me. And one of the ways that we underdogs in the solo guitar world are able to travel and perform in other countries with other people and build our markets that way. I don't have major label support. I don't have an agency. I do everything DIY myself.
I feel like it's different out there though. It's almost like you're put on a bigger scale, like you are.
Well, you get treated a little different once you're the import,
Yeah.
I was explaining that to another artist buddy of mine, is like, it doesn't matter if it's even, you're that famous. Like the fact that you now have become an import, you're now, the steel string acoustic Western guitar player guy that's in the other country,
Right.
And when I went out there, I was treated really very well. Japan has kind of a natural affinity for the arts and fine arts and guitar and rock and roll and fingerstyle guitar. Instrumental music is much more accepted and digested in their culture. But yeah, Japan's amazing. I was able to go there because of a man named Kosuke Miura. Kosuke was a guy that I met at the NAMM show, which was just about a month ago, a convention in the LA area every year. And it's a big music convention. There's a lot of people there, a lot of companies from brands that are selling product, that are, launching their new guitar, their new mic, whatever. It's a networking hub. So I met Kosuke there, and that's what basically led me to building my first tour in Japan. You meet these people that have built their community and their brand as an artist in their given country, in their given area. And that's kind of how I've built my whole career, is cross-pollinating with each other.
Right.
I make friends with a guy in Germany, or a guy in Japan, or a guy in Brazil, and I go there and I do some gigs. He comes here and he does some gigs. That's sort of the way it works.
I feel like your genre can hit so many different markets, and that helps you travel different places because it's a sound that like every different country can listen to.
Yeah. It transcends cultural boundaries, transcends language boundaries, being an instrumental style.
Right.
Instrumental music isn't the most popular style of music out there, but there's one thing, and that's anyone can listen to it, and they get to tell this story. I'm not telling the story, you are, as the listener.
Right.
And of course there's elements of storytelling with composing, but when you remove the lyrics, you're saying something without words, and that transcends language, So it's interesting. You go to other countries and you find this cultural, affinity for acoustic guitar and instrumental music. Like Brazil's another great example where I was fascinated to discover the love for acoustic guitar out there with their gaucho culture. They're essentially like freedom fighters and desperados. Throughout their cultural history, they would learn acoustic guitar from Spaniards, and they actually started adding an extra bass string to make it a 7-string.
Interesting.
To be able to play, sambas and different things. There's a lot of bass lines in Brazilian traditional music. So I was fascinated to discover all these players playing 7-string acoustics out there. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And that's actually what inspired me and led me to create my 7-string steel string acoustic guitar with the company in Czech Republic that I work with.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'm always at NAMM with them doing demos at their booths. I've been with them for about 11 years, something like that.
What's the company? What is it?
Furch guitars, or Furch guitars, Furch. But Furch is how you would pronounce it. It's a Czech Republic based company.
Do you have your like signature model with them, or
yeah,
okay?
Yeah, we call it a collaboration model, just because when I grew up, I never liked signature models. I didn't want someone's name on it. I wanted my guitar, not your guitar. So just in the nature of that, in the spirit of that, I just want to create a model that can have longevity beyond my name,
Gotcha.
Whether I'm with them for the next 30 years or not, that model is going to always be there and available for people to just make their own. So that's the idea of calling it a collaboration model. But
Awesome.
but yeah, essentially it's a signature model, and it's a 7-string acoustic guitar. It's got an extra bass string. It basically, the way Furch has done their model line is they have different tiers that are color series, and so you can get it through different colors, different models, different woods. You can kind of get it in any shape or form. So
sweet.
I've been gravitated towards baritone for years, so that's why I ended up doing the 7-string
style.
Yeah, I come from such a more traditional background with the mindset of finger picking an acoustic guitar. It's very raw, and you don't plug in a bunch of pedals and stuff, although I do.
Yeah.
I like to do that, but that's kind of
Originally,
where
it's
I
not.
come from.
Right.
I come from this more stripped down acoustic background, which is kind of the cool thing about writing a song and like putting a song together is because I do come from being an unplugged acoustic background, I can sort of start writing an idea that way and then start embellishing and bringing it into the studio, bringing in
Some
different effects and
stuff,
different things, because I'm really big on audio, really big on mixing, and I do all kinds of crazy things with my live signals. I think one of the big secrets to my tone and just acoustic guitar in general that needs to be explored more is multiple signals, multiple pickups, and how you route those multiple pickups into a console or into a mixer, that kind of thing.
What you brought today, and then also like the one you'd use like on tour or bigger. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about your effects pedal board and
some
of the things you use.
The heart of it's always a radial unit.
Okay.
Radial engineering. They make these really good acoustic DIs. They're PZ series. It used to be called the Tone Bone. The Tone Bone was that was like one of the staples of everyone. You'd find that on like every acoustic guy's board for years. But they have like a bunch of different pedals now because you could get like a small one, a big one, or one with multiple channels, which is the one I use, the PZ Pro. I use one of them on my smaller grab-and-go board. I actually use 3 of them on my main board, which they're a pretty heavy-duty unit, but essentially it can take 2 signals from acoustic instruments or a mic, and you can blend them, mix them. It has its own EQ channel for each one, and then you can send them out into a mixer. Now, what I usually do is, if I'm doing something quick and easy, I'll just do a DI. I'll send it to the house. I'll run a couple signals into it. But I can run 3, even 4 pickups. And what I'll do is I'll split them all into 3 different analog chains. And then each one of those will have some effects, in the effects loops, maybe some like an octaver in the front. I'll do that a lot. But I'll use my, different pickups for different signal routes. So the octaver I usually only use on a magnetic pickup because that way it doesn't trigger when I'm doing the actual percussion, because I do a lot of this guitar percussion, so I don't want to.
And none of that's like looped, like you're doing, or do you loop some of this?
No.
Yeah, that's all just live.
Never used a looper. You can quote me on that. I have never used a looper. I've dabbled on one, but I have kind of like a little bit of give with my tempo. So loops have always been a little bit of a challenge for me.
I feel the same way.
I almost have to get in the grid, and I don't live in the grid.
Right.
But I don't think music really lives in the grid either. I mean, we get used to it when you go plug into a DAW, right? Because the grid's right there. But it's interesting how I write and record and stuff. I'll use a DAW, and I'll do a tap tempo, and I'll kind of get things going. But I won't listen to a click. I internalize my click. So, I don't use loops, but what I will do is I'll run all of that into a live console through Universal Audio. I love Universal Audio stuff.
That's what me and Dustin use. Or Dustin has a whole rig with Universal Audio stuff.
The fact that it has the real-time processing.
Like no latency.
Yeah, So what you're able to do is I take, what I was saying earlier, I have a pedal board with multiple pickup signals coming from my guitar going into multiple effects chains, and pedal chains. I route all those into a universal audio unit, and then I'm able to actually do, all kinds of stuff with doing like a master chain with like limiting compression EQ. Then I can route how I'm sending them, and layering and leveling them together. I can do like a nice bus with an auxiliary and bring in some different, stuff, sidechain compression and stuff.
Super creative with it.
You can do so much stuff. In the acoustic guitar, I mean, I spent so many years doing gigs where a sound guy would see me rolling up with an acoustic guitar and he'd be like, "Oh, okay, acoustic guitar," and it would sound horrible, and he just didn't quite get what it was that I was trying to do.
This was before you started bringing in your own.
Yeah, before I started bringing in equipment and learning how to do my own audio. I remember doing so many open mics and just little bar gigs and being like, God, why is there always feedback? Why do I always sound horrible? Because I'd want a lot of volume.
Right.
I'm not a singer, so I want a lot of volume, and I'd always run into a lot of these frequency, feedback things. So I remember my producer, Antoine, that was the first guy I sent the CD to, by the way, that said, "You want to tour?" Antoine Dufour. He was a guy from Candy Rat Records.
Shout out.
Yeah. And he actually, eventually, after we toured together, he asked me, "Hey, you want me to produce your records? You can come to my house." And so I've done actually 4 records with him now. We're on to album 5, and we have a new trio together, actually. But I remember we had this game in the studio where we would create feedback somehow, whether it was finding a note and volume, speakers, whatever. And he'd be like, "What frequency is that?" And I'd be like, like 400. He'd be like, "Nope," and it.
Damn, that's what we should have done. I was trying to think of a game that we have this wheel over here that we play with some of the guests and spin the wheel, and that's what we should have done, the frequency game. I should have.
It's a super good exercise because you will use that when you're doing your mix live and you're doing your monitor mix and you're getting that howling feedback. If you just are able to know like it's the
what to EQ out.
Yeah, it's just I know it's the 3rd fret of the 6th string, so that's like roughly around 80 or something like that. I don't know, just random stuff like that, and you're able to just tell the sound guy, "Can give me a 10, 15 dB cut around 80, around 300.
Super useful to just get the sound that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and you'll have sound guys like be like, "Thank you."
Yeah,
and but it just now I do it all myself. Now I just tell a sound guy like, "Give me a flat level mix," like I'll do the rest. And but subwoofers are a big thing too. That's like getting a lot of bass out of the oomph of what I play. But yeah. A lot of projects, a lot of touring this year, man.
I wanted to talk about, you were talking about the signature or collab guitar, but the Ernie Ball strings that you have your name on amongst.
I think I might have brought the pack. No, it's so yeah, Ernie Ball Strings. It's a pretty well-known company, been around for a long time. Kind of a flagship in the guitar string making world. But yeah, I've been with them for just about 10 years now. And like I said, the underdog, in the acoustic world, but I stuck with them for a long time, and they've been supporting me greatly over the years. I mean, the Ernie Ball family is amazing. They're so supportive of musicians, even the underdogs like me. And I noticed actually just recently that my name was on the pack there. So
that's so cool.
It's just cool because obviously there's some good company, on these string packs, the other names and stuff.
Yeah, name some of the other guys are on there because I was like, oh my God.
I mean, I'm a little bit further down the list, but, further up the list, there's like Jimmy Page, Paul McCartney, Keith Richards, Slash, Angus Young, Steve Vai, which, fun fact, Steve Vai's sister school, MI, Musicians Institute, is his like, guitar, rock school, multiple musicians, multiple instruments. But the sister school's in Tokyo, and I'm going to be teaching a master class there, actually.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty stoked.
When you go out there this next time, or is this separate?
Yeah, this time. Yeah, in May, I'll be teaching a master class at the Tokyo Musicians Institute. So first acoustic fingerstyle class they've ever offered there. So I'm pretty excited. I had an interview there last year, and it went really well. And
that's an honor.
Yeah,
the first one.
I'm super honored, man. I mean, like I said, it's like it's one of those things where I've stuck with what I've done for a long time, through thick and thin. And like last year, I got some really good gigs. doing some touring with a famous Persian comedian, Max Amini. That was really cool.
Oh, you toured with the comedian?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, a lot of
just like
big
opening up
rooms.
for him, or okay.
Yeah. He doesn't typically want a comedian to open for him. Kind of keeps the energy more for him. But he likes having some energy ramp up before he comes out, and he loves acoustic guitar. So he found me and asked me to do the gig. But
that's so cool.
It was great, man. I remember that when the agency called me and they were like, "Oh yeah, he wants you to open for him." I was like, "Oh, when?" They're like, "Oh, like the rest of the year, you know." It's like, "Oh, one of these calls. Okay, yeah, all right, let's do it." But wonderful guy and really supportive of what I do. But yeah, you know, you go from doing tours randomly and gigs randomly. You never know what really you're going to get. You just have to be available. You have to say yes. I remember that was one of those, like, I knew that I was quitting my job saying yes, but, you know, I'm not going to say anything. Just say yes and figure it out. Just hang up. Okay, I'll figure it out, you know? But, yeah, man, Japan and Korea is the big target this year. And for the future, I've been building a market out in Japan a lot, and want to build a recording studio out there. Actually, I'm looking at some properties and stuff that. So, yeah, I'll be there for a couple months this year. So I'm excited, really excited. We're going to be playing as a duo, actually, me and my buddy, Kosuke Miura. We have like a new guitar duo where we do almost like some down-tempo electronic kind of vibes. Yeah, been doing a lot of duo and trio stuff. I have a trio with another couple guys from my record label.
Is that some of the stuff you've been posting like recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's, again, live, like all live. No Ableton or looping or anything. It's just all live. The Universal Audio, man.
Gotta love it. What else is next for Adrian Bellue? You brought some merch here. Is that a new CD that we've heard this album, or is?
Yeah, well, it's newer. I mean, I'm kind of reaching I'm late actually on my album cycle. I need to get some new recordings in soon, hence the new projects. But my most recent solo record was end of 2022, beginning of 2023. That's all original songs written on and composed on the 7-string acoustic guitar on that collaboration model with Furch guitars. So yeah, 5 original tracks on that. I do have CDs, these ancient things for sale. Interestingly enough, Ky, the CDs are big in Japan still, and lots of parts of Asia.
I love them. They're nostalgic. Like, I still get mine. You know, that's something you can like sign, you can hang up. It's like it's a cool piece to have. Like, well, and regardless if anyone can play it.
And it's interesting. Like, they still hold value out there. You know, it's like when you import it, you put this little sash around it that has like Japanese kanji that has details about you. It's called an obi sash. And
interesting.
That's actually like what makes it more sought after. Even outside of the Japanese market, collectors highly value the Japanese obi sash from the Japanese import records.
Okay.
I think one of the most valuable secondhand records in history is an opened Beatles record that has one of these sashes, and it's like a couple million or something.
Jeez.
Yeah. So yeah, I got some CDs, these ancient circular devices that play music, and then I got a really cool new shirt design. Actually, we just did this shirt recently. We Need Merch is a great merch company I work with in the Bay Area, but the design itself was by a guy named Riley Herrera. Riley Herrera has an awesome band, one of my favorite bands, Night Verses, and he does merch for all kinds of people. And I was really inspired by, well, a lot of old graph writing and, you know, in like the hip hop and community and stuff. I always got obsessed with graph writing, and then I always liked the big block lettering of Schoolhouse Rock, like conjunction, junction. So yeah, this is my kind of slogan here, and that's pursue your groove.
That's awesome.
So yeah, you got to find your groove in this life. So yeah, I got a bunch of new merch from that. And
if we wanted to get your merch, where we got to come do one of your live shows, you got them online, or
they're on my website on adrianbellue.com. A little cheaper at a live show, but yeah, I ship everywhere in the U.S. and then you just DM me if it's international. Finally getting a little bit of merchandise, which is fun. I'm gonna have new tab books pretty soon, and some like fun little
for your songs.
Yeah, for learning my songs. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the coolest things. So I sell a lot of tabs on how to play my songs.
People reach out to you a lot about wanting to learn.
Yeah, people reach out for lessons and learning, but I have a web store with my label where we sell these tabs, and I get these notifications in my phone that say a tab has been purchased of yours. And when you click it, you can see where it's from and their name. And it's just like crazy. I get I get these messages every day almost, you know, where I look and I'm like, oh, someone in Thailand is learning my song.
That's so cool.
Someone in Japan is learning my song. Someone in Kentucky is learning my song.
That's got to feel really good and just like.
Yeah, it keeps you going. You know, little things like that keep you going when it comes to, you know, this sacrifice and struggle that is being an artist.
Do you ever see them like putting it to use, like any covers of your songs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People trying to.
I've seen a couple covers, and I've encouraged and messaged a couple of these guys and girls doing covers. In fact, Antoine Dufour is a good friend of mine now. He's produced my records. We travel together. He's in Trio, but we chatted me one time from China. We chat. It's kind of like a Facebook kind of thing, and he says, "Hey man, I'm here at this guitar competition for young guitar prodigies, and I'm judging, you know, a bunch of these kids with their songs that they're playing for me. I thought you wanted to see this one." And it was a little girl playing one of my songs. She was like 10 years old.
No way.
Oh yeah, and she was playing the song that I'm gonna play for you guys.
Okay.
Devil Hands.
That's crazy. That's got to be crazy to watch. You're like a 10-year-old's doing this.
Oh yeah,
like,
and it's not an easy song.
No,
it's
none
like,
of your songs I feel like are easy by any means.
This one's definitely like a finger killer, and and it's not tabbed. So she learned it by ear.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
So it was just sort of like, what? Yeah, and he like turned the camera and showed me her playing the song. Yeah, he was like, I thought you needed to see this. It was like, so it feels good, man. It's like one of those things that those are the moments that make me realize, okay, this is why I'm doing.
Why I do this exactly.
I also have like a couple random things. I have an acoustic metal project that I'm working on. That's very different, that I'm singing and screaming. And
is that what doing some of the different vocal things you
doing throat singing and chanting, and I'm also playing my acoustic guitar with a bow, and it's a very different, very folk pagan kind of
experimental album. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's called Ash and Oblivion, and I'm getting a lot of stuff together for that. And then I also have something kind of interesting. I even wore the shirt, but one of my favorite metal bands that I grew up listening to contacted me a little over a year ago and said, "Hey, we're fans of your work. Would you be interested in doing guest acoustic parts for a new album?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah, yes. So Allegaeon, and it's like a meme now with their name being misspelled and mispronounced, and then misspelled in general. But Allegaeon, and they have their new album coming out on Metal Blade Records, and I will be a guest on that record. So yeah, they really pushed me to work too, man. I remember going to the studio was a great experience, and working with the guys, staying with the guys. But we worked on music for a good half a year, different parts. It started off with just exchanging ideas, and then turned into intros and outros and stuff. But then they were like, you know what, we want you to just like play like with the band, like not just, it goes to an acoustic part. They're like, no, we want you to shred with the band, and we want you to play stuff that you like can almost like not even play yet, like that's what their mantra is. They're such a technical band that they're pushing themselves as players, while they're writing. And so I had to do that with them, and it was like, whoa, this is intense, and it was their guy Greg Burgess is just an incredible player. So yeah, Allegaeon. I'll have a new track out with Allegaeon.
You got a lot going on, a lot coming from Adrian Bellue. Where can everyone find you? You mentioned your website. Where can we find you on social media, Instagram?
Everything's at Adrian Bellue. ADrian Bellue.
This has been the Citrus Podcast Show. Stay tuned for a live performance. We have Adrian Bellue performing Devil Hands.